Hello, I'm Michael Hadfield. I'm the author of How to Lose Weight Easily, and I'm here to tell you about how diets actually make you fat. Diets make you fat. It's a strange claim to make when diets obviously work. When you go on a diet and you stick to a diet, you lose weight, don't you? I mean, that's what it's there for. If diets didn't work, diets weren't successful, surely nobody would do them. Nobody would go to all that trouble of starving themselves and avoiding all the foods that they love if it was going to end in disaster. But the truth is, diets don't work. Diets make you fat. Here's why. But before I get on to the reasons why diets make you fat, we have to look at one other thing that confounds the issue. And that's in part due to the advertising that the big diet selling companies engage in. We've all seen Slimmer of the Year who looks half the size or a third of the size they were 1 or 2 years ago before they engaged in a particular diet system. And that's very wonderful. And I'm not saying anything about that. There are lots and lots of people around the world whose lives have been changed because they have successfully lost huge amounts of weight and are managing to keep it off. But the problem is, the only stories you ever hear about are the success stories. You don't hear about the failures. A company like Weight Watchers only needs one hugely successful participant in its program every year out of the tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands or more people who join up for their programs in order for them to promote that point of view and convince you that you can be that successful too if you follow their rules. If you want to do that, that's great. Long term, it will harm you. 21% of all dieters give up in less than 2 months. Just under 50% give up in less than 12 months. Why? Why is it so hard? Because it's tough. The rules are difficult. You go hungry. You experience food cravings. You see other people eating what you want to eat and enjoying themselves. You go with them on nights out. They're all enjoying platefuls of food and you're eating lettuce. And it's just not much fun. And there is a huge amount of social pressure on a dieter to actually not bother, to not continue, have a night off. It won't do you any harm. And all of this comes together, and when you see that after that initial big weight loss and you're struggling to lose a pound, maybe even half a pound a week or maybe a month, or you reach that plateau where your weight fluctuates up and down a little bit, but it never really continues to drop in the way you were expecting. All of that makes it very, very difficult to stick to a diet until you reach your goal weight. And so what happens is most people just pack it in. They just give it up. It's just too hard. Success, however, is brief. That other 50%, the 50% that continue until they reach their target weight, 95% of them put all the weight back on and more. You don't hear about that in the advertising. 95% of all dieters who reach the target weight put all of that weight back on and more. As the Guardian newspaper says, this is what sustains the £2.6 billion industry. So why does the weight come back even for those who are successful and reach their target weight? The weight comes back because they see reaching the target weight as a signal to return to normal eating, and normal eating is what made them fat in the first place. They also don't see the excess weight as a psychological problem, which is really what it is. They see it as a calorie problem. Their internal view of themselves is the same as it was, and so they still see themselves as a fat person on the inside. And of course, there is that thing of when they go and stand in front of the mirror or step on the scales, they feel really, really pleased with what they've achieved, and then they go out and have a cream cake. Those are some of the reasons why the weight comes back on. The problem hasn't really been solved. It's all about relationships. It's about the relationship a person has with food, about what food means to them. That's a key part of the difficulty of losing weight. It's not the whole story, but it is a significant aspect of it. And that means getting into the psychology associated with food and eating. And that's a subject, I think, for another video. For now, I want to stick with the science, stuff that we know and can prove about why diets actually make you fat. Diets cause long-term weight gain. The reason they do this is that the body is a survival machine. When food intake is reduced, then the body has to make up that calorie difference from somewhere. What people think happens is that the body burns fat to supply the missing calorie requirements, and that's how you get rid of the fat that you've accumulated over the years. But what actually happens is the body burns muscle tissue. The reason the body burns muscle tissue is because it is much more efficient for the body to convert muscle tissue into energy than it is to convert fat into energy. So every time you go on a diet, you lose muscle mass. And muscle is a much denser material than fat. So you can actually lose quite a bit of weight that's reduced muscle mass without your body shape changing very much, because the muscle is so much denser than the fat. And what also happens is at the end of the diet, should you reach your target weight, you've got a much higher ratio of fat to muscle in your body. Muscle tissue burns 30 times as many calories pound for pound as fat tissue. It does that just being there. It doesn't have to do anything, it doesn't have to be working. Just sitting and resting, muscle tissue burns 30 times as many calories as fat. So when food is in short supply, which is what happens when you go on a diet, the body interprets that as a famine. It needs to conserve energy to maximize survival. Muscle tissue has to go because it's a much greater threat to survival than fat tissue. So it goes. So you burn muscle, not the fat that you want to lose. Muscle is lean and smooth. Fat is big and blobby. That's why under your skin you get all the lumps and the bumps That's the fat tissue. You're not shifting very much of that when you go on a diet. You're getting rid of the good stuff. What also happens then when you reach the end of the diet or when you stop dieting is you've changed the ratio of fat tissue to muscle tissue in your body, because you haven't reduced the fat by very much, but you've reduced the muscle tissue by quite a considerable amount. That lowers your metabolism. So next time you go on a diet, you'll find it very much harder to lose the weight. Normal eating, you'll find you have to reduce your normal food intake, your normal calorie intake, because otherwise you'll be putting weight on where before you went on the diet you wouldn't have done. Diets make you fat. Your body doesn't understand dieting. It understands plenty, it understands shortage, and it understands survival. We didn't evolve in a world with wall-to-wall food in supermarkets. Food has never been easier to obtain for most of us than it is today. Our bodies weren't designed for a life like that. They were designed for a life where you had to work hard to get food. Just collecting or catching and killing your food used a lot of energy, and that food simply replaced it. But it was a time when, because of climate, the part of the world that we lived in, food would be in short supply at certain times of the year. And that's why the body has these mechanisms built in to maximise our survival. When we diet, when we cut our food supply down, our body goes into famine survival mode. And we can never do anything to change that. That's hardwired into our bodies. Our bodies just don't understand not eating in times of plenty. Diets cause long-term weight gain. Every time you diet, it gets harder to lose the same amount of weight as you did last time you dieted. That increasing difficulty every time you engage on a new diet means you lose a little more faith in yourself. You lose a little bit more faith in your ability to control your life and your weight. And all this adds up so that in the end you just give up. You don't bother. You don't understand there is another way to control your weight, a better way to control your weight that doesn't involve you going through this torture of having to go on a diet. But it does mean getting a little bit more in touch with yourself and your body and your body's needs. It does mean feeling your way a lot more, and it means learning new habits, maybe even consider them new skills. The habit of just eating as much as you need, the skill of exercising your body regularly so that it keeps fit and healthy. But you can learn these things. It's not that difficult. In fact, it's much, much easier on the body than the rigour of going on a calorie-reduced diet. Thank you for watching.